there's two people, at least one, DeSantis and Abbott, who, but DeSantis more so than Abbott, who could potentially be on the ballot. And they are right now being called, and I agree with the assessment, they're nothing but simple, low class, low grade human traffickers. So, what were your thoughts this week of the continued shipping of immigrants to Illinois, primarily Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., and now Martha's Vineyard? What was your take on the human trafficking of Republicans this week?
Oh man, John, this is loaded because I feel so many things. First, I just want to take a moment to feel and empathize with the people going through it, right? Some of these are infant children, right? Newborn mother, like not newborn mothers, but uh, new mothers who are still going through physical things who can't do these trips, right? There's a lot of that older elder grandmas and grandpas, right? I want to take a moment to recognize and empathize those people. Second, because we're the multitask, I want to take a moment to recognize the work of the people in these communities who are helping, right? Martha's Vineyard, we saw Governor Pritzker and Lightfoot step up and take care of the people who were sent to Chicago. The communities, the people, the citizens, the non-elected officials, the House people, the Senate people who stepped up and tried to help these people in these communities. That's another point. Not only, John, do I think this is a political mistake for Republicans because it's just been nothing but bad backlash across the board. It helps their base. Don't get me wrong. It helps Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz go on their little podcast and make fun of it, right? Ted Cruz today saying he enjoyed watching it and he was laughing, and we should send people to Palo Alto in front of the Apple headquarters, right? So not only do I think it's a political mistake, and I want to take a moment to point out the hypocrisy because all these people own iPhones. Ted Cruz is an Ivy League graduate who has millions of dollars. He thinks he's this Texan cowboy. He's an elitist, no matter how far he wants to get away from that. So sending them to Apple, sending them to vice president's home is just political theater, right? And it's hypocritical by a long shot. Now, DeSantis sent people in Texas. It had nothing to do with Florida because he didn't want to affect the Cuban population down there who helps vote him in, right? We'll see what happens in this upcoming election. But with all that set aside, John, what pisses me off the most is that DeSantis is a bully and Abbott is a bully. And I grew up around a lot of legit tough guys. I don't consider myself a tough guy. I'm not going to run, but I don't consider myself a legit tough guy. I grew up around a lot of legit tough guys. DeSantis is not tough. Greg Abbott is not tough. These are weak men, feeble, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, evil, racist. There's I could throw out a million adjectives to describe these people. They're not tough. They're not strong. They appear that to their Republican base who are weaker than they are. Anybody who supports this, anybody who believes this was good, I consider to be a ill-minded and an evil-hearted person. So that's what pisses me off the most because I spent my whole life trying to stick up for people who didn't feel like they had a voice. And I'm not no superhero. I'm not a superhero. I'm not a tough guy. But what pisses me off is that DeSantis and Abbott are bullies, and now they're being met with people who stand up to bullies, and that's what I'm most proud of this whole thing. Sorry for that little rant.
No, and let's take a look at it. First and foremost, I think one of the things that really, in my opinion, kind of just shows how asinine they are is that they're zeroing in and saying, well, these are legal immigrants. First of all, I'm glad they're calling them immigrants as opposed to aliens, but no person is illegal. That you can be here illegally. But let's realize the folks that were sent to Martha's Vineyard, and it's weird because it was Ron DeSantis who sent them to Martha's Vineyard, and they weren't even held in Florida. They were held in Texas. So that's questionable. But the second thing is, those are Venezuelans. Venezuelans, unlike Mexicans, are eligible for asylum, for political asylum. So you cannot say that they're here illegally because Venezuelan migrants are fleeing a country that's in turmoil and they are here seeking asylum. And the whole, well, we need to get rid of the illegals, that could potentially fly in some other elements. But just so you know, to be factually correct, the folks coming from Venezuela are not illegal anything because they're asylum seekers. And you and I both know asylum seekers are treated differently than people who just cross the border without having a urgent crisis at home that justifies their coming here, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, not only is this cruel and inhumane, and we kept hearing about, especially with the folks that got sent to Martha's Vineyard, how many of them came under false pretenses. But the other piece here is that, not only is it false pretenses, but and it may even be federal agents, there's some really, really bad information that's being given where I heard and I watched on TV where they were saying that there are some people that were sent to Martha's Vineyard who didn't have an address, and the people with Homeland Security who helped them fill out the paperwork told them to put down an address that was in Washington State, a homeless shelter in Washington State, and by doing that, that meant that their hearings for asylum cases or whatever they're dealing with in the immigration uh, legal space, they would never ever be able to attend those hearings. So there is a lot of malfeasance going on. And the last thing I was going to say is, if you look at how much it cost, they're making people rich, because the cost of, if they were to move these people commercially, they would not be spending the money that they're spending to move them privately. The $600,000 they spent on the flights from Florida, or that DeSantis spent, because they're not really coming from Florida, that broke down to something like $12,000 per immigrant. That's insane. The price that they've been paying for the buses from Texas to New York breaks down to about $1,000 per immigrant, where they've reported that if a person were to go to a Greyhound bus station and buy a ticket from Texas to New York, it would only cost $300 a person. So in addition to everything being cruel, I want to know, who are the people getting these contracts, and should there be some type of examination about wasteful spending, or maybe even overbloated, inflated contracts that can come back to haunt both governors?